what I did want to ask you was, because we mentioned the agency again, is, and this is completely off topic, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. What possessed you to apply to the agency? What was your motivation? What drove you there?
So funny. Tom Clancy books, 9/11, and not wanting to be some Wall Street stooge. That's really it. All those three things together. I mean, 9/11 happened, and I had a grandfather who was in the military. I mean, who was in the Navy in World War II. I mean, a lot of people obviously had grandparents who served in that war, or grandfathers who served in that war. But we didn't have any military or anything like that in my family. So I kind of thought, I was like, maybe I'll do military. It just felt, I mean, I went to Amherst, and it was one of these schools where, we're talking early 2000s. Obviously, I'm talking about 9/11. There's like the whole school was just one, other than the drinking and the partying and everything, which, I mean, college is mostly a joke. I mean, people pretend like it's not, but for 90% of the people who go, it's like socializing and just getting through it, and then actually trying to be a real productive member of the human race. Everyone was trying to go, Mike, into investment banking or consulting. I mean, there were some people that went to law school, wanted the corporate lawyer thing. I mean, there were some people that did Teach for America, and they had some stories. But for the most part, it was just everyone wanted to go to McKinsey or Goldman, and how do you get there as fast as you can? And I just felt like, I mean, look, after 9/11 happened, I'm a kid who, like I said, I love the Tom Clancy books. I just, on my own, I would just go, Tom Clancy. I've talked about this on my radio show before, but Tom Clancy and Michael Crichton were sort of my first experiences. This was in grade school, so I don't know if like a lot of fifth graders are reading this stuff, but I like to read. And those are my first experience of like, instead of watching TV or movies or something, I was like, I want to go read my Tom Clancy book. Like, I just thought he was amazing, And so that was really how I learned about the CIA. No one had ever talked about the CIA in my house or anything like that. I'd seen Patriot Games. I knew there was this thing called the agency. I had read a book or two on the agency. I'm trying to remember Kessler. You remember Kessler's book on the CIA? I read this guy Kessler, he was a journalist, not an agency guy, but he kind of did a top to bottom. I read Scheuer's Imperial Hubris, if you remember that one about Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's not going to end well, and he actually was right. So anyway, I kind of just found my way into it post 9/11. It felt like trying to just be some guy who's better at spreadsheets and sitting in an office for 80 hours a week, like wasn't interesting to me anymore. And I was the first, Mike, I can tell you, it was the first job I applied for senior year, and it was the job that I wanted. And I got my conditional offer that summer after graduation, and it was off to the races. So just got started.
That's great. That's fantastic. It's stunning how from so many people, right? 9/11 was essentially seen as a call to duty, to honorable duty, and whether it was the military, whether it was the CIA, whether it was wherever, it was the motivating factor for a lot of folks that I know.
Can I just say, Mike, I think that a lot of people now think of it in terms of, we had to go get the bad guys there, so they, so for sort of justice purposes. But you also, I know you remember this, the mindset was actually, what's next? Like, what are they going to hit us with next? There was a real sense when they can run those planes into the buildings as they did, kill almost 3,000 people in one day. And the agency was involved in some of it. And obviously special operations community was real busy in those early GWAT years all over the world. There were other mass casualty plots underway. Like we were, I think that people lose that sense of urgency now, right? They lose that sense of, oh, 9/11 happened, but then like we did these things and these wars, and we eventually got bin Laden. And the story was really much more, 9/11 happened, like, when's the next 9/11 going to happen? When's the next? And is it going to be 10,000 people? Is it going to be 100,000 people? Is it going to be a dirty bomb? Now, maybe some of that got to the point of almost too much anxiety, maybe even a hysteria. But that was a very widespread sentiment after what we saw. And I'll just say, I think that's how the Israeli people now feel, rightly so, after October 7th, right? It's on now.